We are going to start talking about the book of Proverbs for a little bit. The book of Proverbs. In the book of Proverbs, if you'll turn to it with me, it's right after Psalms. If you open your Bible just dead center, you usually end up in the Psalms. Proverbs is the next book. The very first verse of Proverbs, it says, the Proverbs. You wonder, why do we call it Proverbs? That's what it's called. The Mashal. Mashalim, the Hebrew name for the book, the Mashalim, the Proverbs. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. So let's just look at that for just a minute. The Proverbs of Solomon, so we know who wrote them. The son of David, we know his pedigree, that he's in the line of King David, and we know his position. We know he is the king of Israel. The author of the book of Proverbs is Solomon himself. The word for proverb, I just told you, the Hebrew word for proverb is mashal, M-A-S-H-A-L, mashal. And it means a saying or a proverb. I'm going to give you a little longer definition. What is a proverb that David's son Solomon wrote? I'll show you a verse in just a minute. It says he wrote 3,000 proverbs. They're not all recorded. It says he wrote 1,005 songs. We have a song book in the Bible, a Hebrew song book. It's called the Psalms. Those are all songs. But of the song book, I think only one. I said one last time, and I think I found the fact that it was two. I think Solomon wrote 2 Psalms. The Bible says he wrote 1,005 musical songs. Where are they? They're just lost to antiquity. Wouldn't you love to hear the music that Solomon made? We just don't have them. 1,003 songs are lost. The only ones we have are the 2 recorded in the book of Psalms. A proverb is a condensed, so it's a little thing, a condensed but memorable saying, embodying some important fact of experience. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. That's an act of experience. If you've ever known a child, you know that that foolishness is in his heart. It embodies an important fact of experience that is taken as true by many people. Now, that taken as true by many people isn't a biblical definition. That's a Webster's type definition. We know that every proverb is true because they are all written in the Word of God. These proverbs of Solomon are all accurate, are all God-breathed, God-spoken, God the Holy Spirit written words. But a proverb is also outside of the Bible, a condensed but memorable saying embodying some important fact of experience that's taken to be true. It's also a wise, insightful pronouncement. A wise, insightful pronouncement. It says there of Solomon. This is King Solomon, the 3rd king of the United Kingdom of Israel. I want to make a statement or two about this because I find it just overwhelmingly unbelievable, the fact I'm about to bring out. But in all the history of Israel, somebody tell me when Israel began. When did the Jews start? Who was the first Jew? Abraham. You date Abraham biblically to approximately 2,000 years before Jesus came. 2000 BC, Abraham is called out by God. What year are we in now? 2025. Add those 2 numbers together, we're 4,000 years after Abraham. The Jewish people have been on this earth for 4,000 years. In all the history of Israel, going all the way back to the call of Father Abraham in 2000 BC, here's my question for you tonight. How many kings have ruled over all 12 tribes of Israel, united as one people? All the sons of Jacob, all 12 of them, getting along in unity, one nation. How many kings has Israel had when the nation was united and in harmony with one another? What's the answer? How many? Paul says 3, Caleb says 4. Who's number 4? Oh my gosh, a technicality. I bow to that answer. I relent. I change my notes. Wow, Caleb, good job, son. Careful student of the word. Should have been 5. Who was number 5? It was Jesus, the King of Israel, who was rejected, who came to be number 5. But in all the years of in all the years of Israel, 2,000 years before Jesus came, in all those 2,000 years, Israel was ever only a united nation of 12 tribes. Everybody that was Jewish had one king. That only happened 3 times. Caleb says 4. I'll give him 4. Saul was the first one. David was the second one. Solomon was the third one. If you read a history book, you're only going to read those 3. But Caleb is right, because God told Solomon, I'm not going to split the kingdom for the sake of your father David. I won't split the kingdom during your reign. I'll split it in your son's reign. What's his son's name? -5. Rehoboam was his son's name. Solomon's son Rehoboam was a king for a very short time. It was under Rehoboam that the kingdom split. Rehoboam kept Jerusalem, Judah, and Benjamin in the south. Jeroboam was the first called king to the northern kingdom of Israel and the 10 tribes north. 4 kings then. Saul, David, Solomon, and Rehoboam. 120 years. How many years has Israel been on the planet? 4,000. Well, skip the church age. Let's just call it 2,000. From the call of Abraham to the birth of Jesus, the coming of Messiah. 2,000 years of history, and the fact is 120 years they were united. 2,000 years. I mean, these people can't get along with themselves, much less the rest of the world. Out of a 2,000-year history, because of their idolatry, their worshiping false gods, and their disobedience to Yahweh, 120 years. Saul 40 years, David 40 years, Solomon 40 years, Rehoboam a few months before the kingdom split. Amazing. So, Jesus came to be the 5th king of Israel, but he was rejected. He came to unite the kingdoms. The dry bones would be brought together, and Israel and Judah would become one again, and the bones would collect in Isaiah chapter 37 or Ezekiel chapter 37. Which is it? Dry bones. Is it Isaiah or Ezekiel? It's Ezekiel, isn't it? Is it? Somebody say yes. I got to check, sorry. Yeah, Ezekiel. Dry bones, Ezekiel 37. 120 years. So we are all still waiting on the return of Jesus Christ. He was rejected as the 5th king of Israel, who would come back to unite the tribes all together, 12 tribes together in the land of Canaan. I will be your king. I will sit on David's throne. They said, you're not the one. So we all wait for the return of Jesus. The church waits for the return of Jesus. And one day the Jews will wait for the return of Jesus once we get into the tribulation. 2 returns. Just quickly, I need to tell you this because I tripped over it. 2 returns of Jesus Christ. I just want you to be aware that in a lot of dispensations, they believe that Jesus is returning, but they have it mixed up and they think He's only coming back once. As dispensationalists, we are dispensationalists, whether you know the word or not. If you agree with that chart that's in the hallway of those different time periods walking through human history, then you're a dispensationalist. We are. And we understand there to be two returns of Jesus Christ. You know that, right? I'll show you in this slide. The first return of Jesus Christ is related to the church. So what do you think when I get down to the slide? I'm going to say the second return of Jesus Christ is related to Israel. We're two different things. The church is not Israel. Israel is not the church. Jesus isn't going to come back for His bride, the church, and deal with Israel at the same time. Israel is not His bride, the church is. There are two returns. The groom will come back to get the bride at the rapture of the church. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 through 18. Talk about the trumpet call of God, the voice like an archangel, the dead in Christ rise first. We that are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them. That is the rescue mission when the Father sends Jesus back to earth to rescue the church, His bride, before she's demolished by madmen on college campuses shooting the righteous. The rapture is a rescue mission because things will get so evil here that He has to rescue His bride. And what groom wouldn't rescue his bride? That's what the rapture of the church is. It happens in the clouds. The great distinction, or one of the great distinctions between the rapture of the church, His first coming back to earth, is that He only gets to the clouds. We that are alive remain shall be caught up together with them, the dead who have risen first, in the clouds. And there we will be with Jesus forever, in Jesus' company, not in the clouds. So His first return is related to the church. His second return is related to Israel. Revelation chapter 19, He, the one who's called faithful and true, comes back on the white horse. It's the second coming for Israel. The first is called the rapture. The second is called the second coming, when He comes all the way back down to earth. His first coming would have been when? I mean, if this is the second coming, when was His first coming? What? When He was born. In the fullness of time, God sent forth His Son. His first coming is when He was born, when He grew into maturity, when He went to the cross and all the rest. That was His first advent, the first time He came to earth. His second advent appearance on earth is the second coming for Israel, the battle of Armageddon, the white horse, the sword that proceeds from His mouth. All those things Revelation 19 and 20 speak of is the second coming. That is not related to the church. It's related to His relationship with Israel. Why can I say that so confidently? Who comes back with Him? The church does. The rapture is about the church. The second coming is about Israel. The church is in tow. And Jesus comes all the way to the ground. Not in the clouds. The white horse comes down into the ground, fights the battles, the campaigns of Armageddon everywhere. So again, before we move on, in the past 4,000 years of Jewish history, they have only been united with all 12 tribes together as one nation. In 4,000 years of human history, Israel has only been united with one king ruling over all the Jews in the world for 120 years. Hard-headed people. I have a couple of thoughts about Solomon's wisdom. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Now we all know, at least we probably should all know, that Solomon didn't have a good ending. Solomon would eventually collect 700 wives. Mosaic law said you can have how many wives? How many? One. A man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. Singular. One. So even though we have the wisdom of Solomon here in writing all these proverbs for us, we have to remember Solomon didn't end well. 700 wives, 300 concubines. He made all these wives, idolatrous temples all around the city of Jerusalem, so that if you're in God's temple, you could look out on the hillsides around Jerusalem and see all the temples that he made for his foreign wives to Dagon and Molech and Milcom and Baal and Asherah littered around Jerusalem was Solomon's temples that he'd made for his wives. I ask a question about who this Solomon was. It's just perplexing to me, and I don't know that I'm right. I just wonder. Where did Solomon get the wisdom from? What's the answer to that question? Directly from God. God said, He came to Solomon a second time, and He said to Solomon, this is the verse, 1 Kings 3:5, in Gibeon, Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. And God said to Solomon, one-on-one, just the two of them, ask what you wish me to give you. Whatever you want, I'm offering it to you. What do you want? And what did Solomon answer? He answers God in the next verse, 1 Kings 3:6. Solomon said, you have shown great loving kindness to your servant David, my father. Loving kindness is chesed, C-H-E-S-E-D. It's covenant loyalty. It's covenant love. You've made a promise to David, my father, and you've kept it. You've shown great kindness, great covenant love, loving kindness to your servant David, my father, according as he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you. David lived a certain kind of life before the Lord. Solomon is saying, you made promises to my father, you've kept them. You have reserved for him this great loving kindness. Another part of the covenant you've made with God, through your covenant love, you've kept it. You've reserved for him this great loving kindness that you have given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. Who's the son? Him, Solomon. He's speaking of himself. This is what he says after that. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king, me, third person. He's speaking about himself. He calls himself your servant, God's servant. You have made your servant king in place of my father David, yet I am but a little child. And when I read these things, I start questioning, was Solomon innately wise? Well, you know, some people, they're just wise. They're sages. They're slow thinkers. Not slow like it takes them a long time to process. I mean careful, deliberate. Let me pray about it. Let me think about it. I'll call you tomorrow. You call me and ask me a question, you better hold on because the answer's coming, and I mean right now. But not everybody is like Peter, and not everybody is like me. But I wonder what kind of guy Solomon was, that he had everything God gave him but ended so poorly. He says, I'm a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. I don't have any idea how to fight a war. That was my dad's business. I don't know how to do that. That's what he means by go out and come in. He says, your servant, speaking of himself, is in the midst of your people, which you've chosen, a great people who are too many to be numbered or counted. I'm unworthy to be the king of this people. I'm a little kid. I don't know how to go to battle. Not a little kid, but compared to my father David, who killed Goliath, who slayed his 10,000s, who slaughtered the Philistines, who all the things David did, who am I? 20-year-old or so kid that you are making king now. The next verse, Solomon gets to his answer. What do you want me to give you? It's yours. Name it. So Solomon says, so give your servant, me again, Solomon, so give me, your servant, an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern, an understanding heart that can judge your people, and an understanding heart that can discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours? And the question that bugs me is, was he wise already? Or did this man have weaknesses? Was it his idea? Somebody tell me. Was it Solomon's own idea to ask for more wisdom? Or was that somebody else's idea that Solomon was just following through on? Was it Solomon's idea to ask for more wisdom because he already was a wise man? I mean, if you're a wise man and God says, what do you want? A wise man would say, I'd like more wisdom. That's a wise thing to ask for. Is that who Solomon was? Is he innately, like from birth, is it his tendency to be one of those deliberate, slow thinkers, a wiser man than others, or was he not that guy? I'll let you decide. Was he only doing what he was told by someone else who knew about his weaknesses, maybe like his dad, who knew if you're going to lead this people Israel, and I know you are, I know you by name, God has named you Solomon, Shalom, Shlomo, peace. You're the one that God is going to have build the temple. I know you, son. I've gathered all the material for you. I just wonder, what is David doing? What is this relationship? What is the knowledge that David has about his son Solomon that Solomon doesn't have about himself? My question is, before Solomon asked for wisdom and he got wisdom from God, was he not a wise man? You'd have to wonder. Because his sin nature tendencies, how many of you have a sin nature that wants to lead you away from God? Everybody should raise their hands. Solomon, no question, had problem areas. Big time problem areas. When his sin nature ruled his life, it was a disaster. And I just wonder if dear old dad, the wonderful King David, knew the weaknesses of his son just as much as each of you knows the weaknesses and the strengths of your own children, don't you? Yes, you do. So do I. I know where Caleb is the strongest guy in the room, and I know where he's the weakest guy in the room. I know my son. His father David taught Solomon, told Solomon, instructed Solomon that he would need discretion and understanding if he was going to be the king of Israel. Listen to what it says. My question, my burning question that I'm trying to answer to myself and to you is, I wonder if David knew his son lacked these qualities. You're not this guy. Yet God is going to elevate you to this position. I just go back to Moses I go back to the days of Moses before the Israelites went into the promised land. Moses is talking to the Israelites. He's given them like 8 sermons there to get them ready to go into the land, the second generation. And God comes to Moses and says, let me let you in on a little secret. They're going to walk away from me. They're going to walk away from me. These people that you're instructing, I'm taking you home, Moses, very soon. You'll climb Mount Nebo, and there you'll look out over the land. I'll show you across the Jordan River, and I will take you home on that day when you climb Mount Nebo. You will not cross into the promised land. But your people who you've led all these 40 years in the wilderness, when they go into the land, I'm telling you because I know they're going to walk away from me and go into idolatry. They're going to fail me, Moses. They're going to fail you in all your instruction. All the great commandments that I gave you on Sinai, they're going to walk away from all of it. I'm the Lord your God. There is no other God. They're going to walk away from it. Have no graven images. Make no idols of anything. They're going to walk away from it. And I wonder if David looked at Solomon and thought, Maybe 50-50 chance. I just wonder because he ended so atrociously. I wonder if Dad knew. Look at what it says in 1 Chronicles 22:11. David speaking to his son. He says, "Now my son, the Lord be with you." I'd say to Caleb or Savannah the same thing. May you walk this life with God. David knows. He says, "My son, the Lord be with you, that you may be successful," because there is no other success unless you're walking this life in an intimacy with God. Nobody gets to fake it. May you build the house of the Lord your God just as He has spoken concerning you. I won't be here. And David is saying, I really hope you do it. Isn't that I don't know why that hits me so powerfully, but David says, may you build the house. Interesting. I wonder what's going on in David's head. Build the house of the Lord your God just as He has spoken concerning you. Only, and look at what David says to Solomon. If he already had discretion and understanding, why would David ask that Yahweh give Solomon discretion and understanding? You're not discreet, kid. I know you. You've got weaknesses. You're not good at discretion. 700 wives, 300 concubines, idolatrous temples all over Jerusalem. You wonder, was this guy's weakness? Because his father knew it. Only the Lord give you discretion and understanding and give you charge over Israel so that you may keep the law of the Lord your God. If God doesn't do this for you, if God doesn't give you discretion and understanding, we got trouble in Israel. That's the way I choose to read it. Because in the next verse, he warns him. So when Solomon tells God, give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil, I see Solomon bowing at the knees of his father David saying, Father knows best. You know who I am. And if you charged me that the Lord needed to give me more discretion and more understanding, then that's what I will ask of God. And it's exactly what he did. He understood that his dad knew best. In the next verse, David says this to Solomon. Then you will prosper if. Again, I hear Moses and God telling Moses, he's not going to do it. David says to his son Solomon, then you will prosper if you are careful with discernment and understanding and free will choice, if you, Solomon, are careful to observe the statutes and the ordinances which Yahweh commanded Moses concerning Israel. See, it takes me right back to Moses and Israel. In my thoughts, it takes me right back to the day God told Moses, you're teaching them and I love you for it. Keep doing it, but they're going to turn away from you. They're going to turn away from me. And here we have David telling Solomon, if you're careful, Solomon, to observe the Mosaic law which God gave through Moses, then you will prosper. But if not, son, if you continue on your weakness path, if you let your sin nature destroy you, you will destroy yourself. Careful walk with God, follow the Mosaic law, one husband, one wife, cleaves forever, or walk away from the Mosaic law and live a life of indiscretion the way you are apt to, because I know your weaknesses, you're done. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear nor be dismayed. I have just gone through a whole series of thoughts, wondering, because we all have weaknesses, right? We all have strengths, and we all have, weaknesses. Weaknesses that make us worthless to God when we walk according to our weaknesses. Dad knew the boy. 1 Kings 4:29-30, God gave Solomon wisdom. Why wouldn't he? That's what Solomon asked for. Understanding, discretion. So God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment and breadth of mind. I'm answering the question, why did God choose Solomon to write all these proverbs? These pithy statements, these short statements of truth. What was the definition of proverbs? I mean, why not somebody else? A condensed but memorable saying embodying some important fact of experience, an insightful, wise pronouncement. Why Solomon? Because God made him wiser than any man who'd ever lived. I don't think he was wise before God gave him the wisdom. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment and breadth of mind like the sand that's on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the sons of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. The next verse says, he was wiser than all men. Then Ethan the Ezrahite, then Heman, then Calcol and Darda, the sons of Mahol. These are obviously, we don't know who they are. Ethan the Ezrahite, I think, wrote a couple of Psalms. But the others lost to antiquities, lost to history. But Solomon, it says, his fame was known in all the surrounding nations. He also spoke 3,000 proverbs. We have a tenth of that. Maybe a quarter of it. And his songs, like his father the musician, the great songwriter David, his songs, Solomon's, were 1,005. What was the breadth of his knowledge? He spoke of trees, from the cedar that's in Lebanon, even to the hyssop that grows on the wall. He spoke also of animals and birds and creeping things and fish. He knew science. He knew creeping things. He knew life. He knew biology. Knew all that stuff. Men came from all peoples, from all Gentile nations, from every nation of the world. People were coming to Solomon to hear his wisdom from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. Word had gotten out. Solomon is the wisest man on earth. And I guarantee you, word had gotten out that Yahweh, the God of Israel, had gifted him with this wisdom. If anybody, oh man, Solomon, if anybody had a captive audience, think of how Solomon could have influenced the entire world. God made him wise and was bringing people from all over to hear King Solomon. What should he have told and taught them? What did he know? He had the 613 commands of the Mosaic Law. He had history. He had Genesis. He had Adam and Eve, the fall, the promise of the deliverer. He had all those things. He had Noah's Ark. He had the Tower of Babel. He had all of this knowledge and wisdom to give the world. But what did he do when the kings came around? Instead of sharing the wisdom of God, what did Solomon collect from the kings? Their daughters. That's the answer. Their daughters. Foreign wives. Solomon. The book of Proverbs, I just want to close here with a few things. The book of Proverbs, written by the great Solomon, 31 chapters long. Is it 31 or 32? It's 31, the great words of Lemuel about the Proverbs 31 woman, the last chapter. Wonderful qualities of a godly woman Solomon wrote about. But the book of Proverbs, just a few, and I'm going to do this quickly, just a few topics. And there's a lot of these, but I'll go through them quickly, or I'll stop in just a minute. Let me just show you a couple of them. The question is, what topics does Solomon cover in the book of Proverbs? And the answer pretty much is whatever you want to know about, you'll find it in the book of Proverbs. He speaks of wisdom or being wise. He also speaks of the opposite. Proverbs is a book about contrast. The wise man does this, the fool does this. The wise man says this, the fool does this. It's a series of contrast. Every chapter, every verse, it's contrast after contrast after contrast. The righteous versus the wicked. The life of people versus death. Contrast everywhere in Proverbs. Knowledge versus ignorance. You know what? Just for the heck of it, I just turned to a page. It says, a worthless man digs up evil, while his words are like scorching fire. But a gray head is a crown of glory. It's found in the way of righteousness. Contrast. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty strong man, and he who rules his spirit than he who captures a city. There are all these contrasts. An evildoer, a liar, one who mocks the poor, and then it talks about the glory of sons, grandchildren, excellent speech. Contrast after contrast after contrast. Every page. All these things are good, all these things are bad. Sometimes in the same verse. This is good, this is bad. Work and diligence versus what? What would be the opposite, the contrast of work? Laziness. All over the book of Proverbs. You just pick your topic. It's there. Orderliness, disorderliness. Success, what's the opposite? Failure. All over the Proverbs, all these things. Wisdom equals success. No wisdom equals failure. What's the great proverb in Proverbs chapter 1, verse, I think it's 7. What does he say? The very beginning of the Proverbs, after he says, this is who I am, this is why I'm writing them, he says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. See the contrast? The one who has the fear of the Lord is just beginning to collect knowledge and can collect knowledge, but the fool rejects that. The contrast. Self-control, anger. Proverb after proverb about these things. Faithfulness, unfaithfulness. Obedience, disobedience. Honesty and integrity, or obedience and rebellion. Honesty and integrity versus cheating and deceit. The Proverbs are filled with this kind of information. If you want them, I'll show them to you in a minute. Justice, fairness, and equity versus the opposite, injustice and unfairness and inequity. He says you should live this way, not that way. Truth versus lying and deception. Honor versus dishonor. Commendation versus criticism. Commending someone for doing something rather than constantly being that voice of criticism in a person's life. Humility versus pride. You read all these, and the thing that kills me is Solomon knew all this. This was this guy. He had this knowledge. Here's a question. Having knowledge, is that enough? Is wisdom the same as knowledge? Solomon knew all these things. He didn't do them. Solomon knew what it was to be humble and have one wife, but instead his arrogance and his pride and his God's gift to women part came out, and so he collects them like trophies all of a sudden. He knew these things. Wisdom is a spiritual street smarts. Wisdom is knowing something and using it, putting it into action in your life. That's what wisdom is. That's what a wise person does. You take what you know and you use it. Knowledge is just knowing it. Poor Solomon. Purity, impurity, encouragement, slander. You can encourage someone or you can slander them. Opposites, peace or strife and jealousy. A lot to say about peace in the home. The book of Proverbs talks about love. He talks about hatred. Talks about mercy and kindness. The opposite, cruelty. All in the book. Talks about generosity and he talks about greed. Anybody know how he uses the phrase? What phrase he uses? Amy, do you remember? A generous person has a what? And a greedy person has a what? Anybody remember? It's a body part. It's his eye. In the Bible, when it speaks of someone having an evil eye, that means they are greedy. That means they are not generous. If you have a good eye, you're generous with your things. If you have an evil eye, you're greedy. That's how God defines that. The book of Proverbs, a couple more. Joy, sadness, he speaks of that. Speaks of hope, speaks of anxiety. I mean, all these things are in there. Speaks of good company versus bad company, all over. Friendliness versus animosity and enmity. You want to know what Solomon knew? He knew all these things. Yet he built temple after temple to gods that don't exist. He didn't have joy. He didn't have hope. He didn't keep good company. Crazy. Wealth, poverty, virtue, shame. Boy, there's a lot of these. Soberness, drunkenness, all in the book of Proverbs. You can read it all there. Friendliness, unfriendliness, trust, worry, pleasure, misery, 700 wives, misery. Quietness, this is an interesting one to me. And talkativeness. Go read the Proverbs about being slow to speak. James picks up on the same thread. Slow to speak. Quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Quietness versus talkativeness. Contentment versus envy. Teachableness versus unteachableness. And there are other subjects that the Proverbs talk about also, just very quickly. Those were contrasts, but there are other subjects in the book. The fear of the Lord, the beginning of all knowledge and wisdom. He talks about husbands and wives, relationships between your husband and wife. Talks about fathers, mothers, and children, so family. He talks about kings and rulers, so politics. He talks about masters and slaves, so workforce relationships. He talks about prostitutes. There is no shortage of sex talk in the first few chapters of the book of Proverbs. You men want to know what will destroy you fast? Go look for that woman, that prostitute on the street, calling out to you, trying to get you to come into her lair, to lay on her couch with her. Proverbs talks a lot about men destroying themselves with wayward women in the first 4 or 5 chapters of the book. Orphans and the needy, talks about business dealings. He covers it all. Talks about hypocrisy, talks about stealing, talks about rebuke, and talks about gluttony and food habits. It's all in there, the book of Proverbs. 31 chapters, absolutely loaded with information from the great one, the wisest of all men, Solomon, who at the end of his life, if you looked and saw what he did and how disrespectful he was to his God, you would say, how could you blow it quite so badly? What is your sin nature pattern? What are your weaknesses that your father knew about when he told you, son, you need, and I'm praying that God gives you wisdom and discernment and understanding, or you'll never be able to lead this people. I just wonder. Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for